Do we have everybody here?
Everyone except CBS 42.
Okay. All right. I don't know if they're coming around. If you want to, we can. I'll shut that door. Just let me know when you're ready.
I'm good to go.
Ready, sir.
All right. I appreciate everybody being here with us this morning, and everybody kind of listening to what has been going on in the last couple of days. I want to thank Mr. Barnette and his staff and what they've done the last couple of days, and really since the school shootings in Florida. We want to give you an update on the two incidents that we had at Good Hope School and Vinemont School. Both of those situations have been handled. Of course, you know, we knew yesterday that we had made an arrest at the Good Hope situation. Late last night, we made an arrest in the Vinemont situation. We arrested last night a Emily Nicole Wilson, 18 years old, of Cullman, for making a terroristic threat. And again, like we talked about yesterday, you know, for us at the sheriff's office, and you know, any threat is serious to us. You know, again, I've said this a million times, our children are our most precious resource, and we want to ensure that they're taken care of. It's a top priority for me. I have children. I have children in the schools, and you know, the school resource deputies, they take it personal. Our investigators take it personal. So when we started receiving these messages about 8 o'clock two nights ago, you know, a little bit over 48 hours, our investigators have worked nonstop, and they work with the school resource deputies, they work with the schools, and you're talking about 48 plus hours of man hours that's to get to this point today. Again, you know, the biggest thing for us is identifying the threats and eliminating the threats so we can give people peace. And I think that's what you see today. We are a social media world where when something is posted or said, it goes viral within minutes. Just like when the incident started a couple of days ago, our social media network exploded. And so it's a priority for us to give people in the community peace. The main message we want to get is that our children are safe. They're safe in our schools. They were safe those days that people were worried. We had already put precautions in place. Once we were notified of the threat, we coordinated with the school board, Dr. Barnette and them, and we had, you know, people in place. We have plans in place. And that's one of the things that we deal with when we have a incident like Florida. We know that we're going to have copycats. Now, some people try to make threats credible. Some people do it to get out of trouble. Miss Wilson, young girl, didn't really have any issues. She's 18 years old and had the forethought of doing something that would give her time to study for a test. Now, this is a very serious situation. You know, when we make the decision to do something to give us time to take a test, well, guess what? The end result is you get arrested and you go to jail for making a terroristic threat. And that is how serious it is today. And I think we as a community, we as parents, we need to talk to our children about that. We need to talk to them about being responsible, making good decisions, being good leaders. Because guess what? Now, 48 hours later, we have two children had various reasons for doing things. Well, now their lives have been turned upside down, just the same as our community has been turned upside down for the last 48 hours.
With the Vinemont incident, Ms. Wilson, what type of threat did she make, and what type of threat did she make?
What she used was a app called Text Now. Again, the social media world, most of our children are a lot smarter on social media than we are, but she used a Text Now app where she was able to send out information, making basically naming a school with a picture of a firearm and a date. which is alarming in nature because of everything that we face today in society. But these kids know how to use apps. They know how to try to hide information. Well, this is the reality, and we talk about this on other levels with media and our children. You cannot put anything on the internet and it goes away forever. And the children need to understand that. It may take time, but it never goes away, for us to find it.
Was Ms. Wilson a student at Vinemont, and which grade would she be in?
She was 18 years old, so, and I'll let Dr. Barnette refer to that, but she was 18 at Vinemont.
She was a high school senior.
I know both President Trump and there's also an Alabama House bill that's would like educators to carry it on school grounds to protect students. What are your thoughts about that, Sheriff?
Okay. Well, number one, I'm very pro Second Amendment. I think if you can legally possess an own firearm, I think it's your right. Those are things that the school board and the superintendent and the citizens need to talk about. We already provide training for the community. We do a lot of community training. And so, the biggest thing is what is best, what meets the needs of our community the best. And we're very lucky in Cullman County. We have a deputy at every school, the same in the city of Cullman. And so we have a strong law enforcement presence there at those schools.
So you would support teachers to carry on school grounds?
That's a decision that has to be made by the citizens and the school board and their policies and those issues. But again, I'm very pro Second Amendment. So.
Are you familiar with Emily Wilson? Does it surprise you? And did you meet with her like you did with the other student who you said was very remorseful?
I have not met with her yet, but I've talked to the administration that knew her well, and they were surprised, and several of her friends were surprised. And I think, once again, as the sheriff said, it came down to a poor decision made by a teenager that thought this is going to be a short-term, get out of class kind of thing, and that is very serious.
And I think what we see in society today is sometimes within our peers we lack leadership. One of the things that we believe in is going to the schools, talking to them about leadership. As you see at the sheriff's office, on our seals, we have honor, courage, and integrity. The reason we do that is because it's key words in our decision making. And I think it's important for our children to understand the same thing. Before you make a decision, ask yourself, does it show honor? Is it an honorable decision? Before you make a decision, is it courageous? Does it show courage to make that decision? And last, does it show integrity? If it meets all three of those, then you know it's the right decision. If you're missing one part of those three words, then you know it's not the right decision. But as peers, as young leaders in school, as a community, it's important to work together. I graduated from Good Hope High School, and I go back to being in school with my principal, the teachers. We were a community that policed themselves. And what I mean by that is if they saw something going on in my life, they would talk to me about it because we had that relationship within the school system. But also my friends, if I was going to make a poor decision, my friends knew about it because somebody will know anything and everything you do because that's just the nature of who we are as people. And it's important for those students to basically show leadership. If somebody come to me as a student and said, hey, I'm going to do this because I don't want to take a math test, then I'm going to say what you're about to do is going to not only cause you a lot of problems, but it could change your life for the rest of your life. It could change your career path. Hey, I'll stay up all night studying with you if you need help. And that's what we have to do in society. We have to police ourselves with responsibility to doing what's right. If somebody comes and says, hey, I want to get out of school because I know if I send this, then I can get out of school for one day. Hey, you have to have somebody step up and say what you're doing is wrong.
So speaking of how serious this is, we're looking at a high school senior who possibly was maybe looking at colleges or at least a career after school, now possibly faces prison time.
That's right. And that's the consequences of it. I mean, this is 2018. These are serious. You're talking about putting communities in fear by words, by your actions. And it's very serious to us. Again, I told you, the most precious resource we have is our children. If you want to get me angry and you want to get me mad, threaten our children, threaten our community. And that's what this is. That's the reason it's a terroristic threat, because you're putting a community in fear.
Mr. Barnette, will the Vinemont student be expelled, or what's her current status?
I haven't reached out to her parents yet. I will be today, and we'll be having that conversation. I expect them to withdraw from the school system. I would expect that, but I'll have that conversation with them today.
Also, what are your thoughts on teachers carrying on campuses to protect students?
Well, I will say, I know there are multiple bills out there, and I need to read those bills very carefully, and because of all that's been going on over the last week, I haven't had a chance to do that. But I personally am in favor of highly trained individuals on our campuses being allowed to carry firearms at the discretion of the school board and myself.
Superintendent Barnette, I know we've had press conferences, interviews over the last week or two. How do we communicate the gravity of this to the students in the schools? They're not necessarily going to watch this video or somebody else's. How do you do it at that level?
And then I did an all-call to all the families of Cullman County schools last night. And one of the things that I've asked our families is, I asked 3 things that I need from them. And one of those is for them to sit down with every one of their children and talk to them about how serious this is. This is no longer, hey, this is funny, or hey, we're going to get out of a class or get out of a school day. This is serious stuff. So I asked them to have that conversation with their children. And the second thing I've asked families to do is periodically go and review their children's social media. Deal with that in your family before it becomes a school issue. If they see suggestive stuff in there or threatening things in there before it goes public, go ahead and address that and deal with it then. And then the third thing that I've asked our families to do is, if something's not truthful, or if they don't know that firsthand, don't be going online and continuing those posts or forwarding those posts, because that's one of the things that can stall an investigation, is when we have a lot of false information being passed around and stuff, and we don't need that. But if they'll do those 3 things, and which goes back to the way when we were growing up, that we were kind of self-policing ourselves, because if my friends' parents knew of something I'm doing wrong, they're going to get with my parents and straighten me out. And we still need that in 2018.
And I think it goes back to being involved in our children's lives. You know, with my kids and everything, I mean, we talk about things. We talk about social media. We talk about the dangers of it. We go out and we do classes in the community at the sheriff's office, and we talk about the dangers of social media and sexual predators. You know, it's not just only a tool used to make threats or like what we've dealt with in the last couple of days, but it is a tool for criminals to solicit our children, to solicit elderly people, scams, you know, and we have to be aware of that, and we have to work with our kids and manage what they are seeing and using on social media. Educate ourselves to what apps are out there that kids can hide pictures, information, anything that they don't want their parent to see.
Have they been formally charged yet?
Yes, she has been charged and arrested.
Community policing, is that how you guys were able to track her down? Was it parents, students? Is that how you were able to solve this so quickly?
Sure. A lot of it, yes. And then a lot of it's using the investigative tools that we use day in and day out. You know, working with other law enforcement agencies, working with databases to gather information. But a lot of it is by working with the kids, working with the parents. I've said this time and time again, we live in the greatest county in the state of Alabama. Cullman County is the greatest county in the state of Alabama because of our citizens. From the time this started till this morning, I've had interaction, whether it be phone calls, text messages, social media, with our citizens with regards to, hey, this is what our kids told us, this is what we've heard. And that is a good tool to have that relationship with the community, because it's our community. it's our school system. It's all of us together working together to make it better.
Were both threats made on Wednesday?
Yes, yes.
What can you tell us about the student's background? Honor students, sports, anything like this?
At this time, I couldn't really comment on that. I understand, let me say that her academics was very important to her. And I hate that.
And going off of that, the fact that her academics are so important to her, how ironic this whole situation is.
And I think it goes back to young people are making poor decisions because they don't realize how serious that things like this are. And they just really got to think twice before they do something like this. And I would like to take this opportunity to say how thankful I am for the partnership that Cullman County Schools have with Sheriff Gentry and the police department. And we're so fortunate that we have SROs at every one of our campuses. And they've built these relationships. So when we have an incident like this, that we feel comfortable coming together immediately and talking about this and with our SROs and getting down to the bottom of it as quickly as possible. So I'm thankful for that. I praise their department.
Do y'all keep any statistics as far as the number of students charged with making a terrorist threat or something like that, as far as how many situations y'all have like this?
We don't have very many of them, so there's not a database or anything. It's just something out of the ordinary.
Okay.
And a lot of times, these situations can be handled in-house because it's, it may be a comment or really not a threat in nature. It may just be a comment of frustration from a student. And so a lot of times those are handled in-house. Now these were different because of the nature of delivery, of course, social media and those kind of things. So a lot of times those are different and handled differently.
Sheriff, may I change topic really quick? Doyle Ham execution last night from Cullman County. The crime happened here. His execution was stayed, convicted on death row. Is that frustrating for law enforcement to have someone sentenced to death, but then that death not take place?
Well, I think it's probably frustrating for victims. The way I look at law enforcement, and you have to do this, and like I said, now we're completely changing the spectrum of things, but I think as a law enforcement officer, to keep moving forward, you have to understand what we do, okay? We put together evidence to present to a district attorney. They prosecute and the judge sentences. Our job is to build on the truth. So our sole purpose is to build on the truth and present those facts and truth to the court system. And it's up to the court system then to do their job on that end. Then it's up to our leaders in government, whether it's the Supreme Court or whoever, to continue to do what's right for the community. One of the things, and since you talked about victims, one of the things that was on my heart after taking office was a victim service deputy. And so we have our very first victim service deputy, because what happens is everybody thinks about Ham, but nobody thinks about the victims. Nobody thinks about the victim's family. So to me, that's what I think about. That's what's important to me is the victims in our community. And that's why we have a victim service deputy now that goes out, because again, everybody always thinks about the bad guy. Everybody always thinks about the one that did the crime, but nobody thinks about the ones that are affected. The same concept as with this incident here. We focused on the two individuals that made very bad decisions. But you know what? There's a lot of people that it affected. There was a lot of fear. And that's what we have to think about too, is what it causes to the victims and what it does to your community. So that's very important to me.
Will you all repeat the names of the suspects or
We can only release one,
okay,
because that one is an adult.
Okay.
We can't go into the details on the juvenile, but Emily Nicole Wilson, 18 of Cullman, is the one that we arrested for the incident at Vinemont.
Okay.